Howdy, class, and welcome to Module 4. Today we're going to cover the Ages and Stages application. This is a pretty common topic regarding youth development, so be glad to go over it. I don't think it's going to take a very long time to go over this lecture, so let's get to it. Ages and Stages. So within child development, we have three broad areas, and we've talked about these. They've kind of gone over in several different ways, but we have cognitive, psychosocial, and biological. And all of these developmental stages are important to consider in program planning. So cognitive, we have things like the maturation of their thought process, problem solving, decision making, and these are going to change all the way from adolescence to adulthood. Psychosocial are changes in their conscious thought and problem solving in negotiating the differences in biological and sociocultural forces. So, how they interact with relationships and others. And finally, we have the developmental stages of biological and physical. So, changes that occur in the body as part of normal growth and development. So puberty is obviously the largest one that we would talk about in biological and physical growth. But the knowledge of ages and stages in youth development is very critical in determining age-appropriate activities. That's what I want you to remember. And behavioral challenges and disinterest or lack of engagement could be related to the planning of good activities, but for the wrong age group. So just because a certain program or activity doesn't work in one particular age group, you need to consider, are there things about it that are inappropriate for that age group, and make changes. So first, let's start with 5 to 7-year-olds. These are groups that increasingly want to be with friends of the same gender, so same gender activities. They do want to do well. They're very self-centered, but they're beginning to see people's points of view. So if you think about younger children, I have nearly a 2-year-old. He's very interested in doing things his way, and if he doesn't get to do things his way, he gets very upset. But as we get through the 5 to 7-year-olds, they're starting to see other people have views as well, and that they have value in those views. They still do not handle criticism very well. They're very concrete in their thinking. It's black or white, right or wrong. Their motor skills are somewhat increasing, obviously better than like a toddler. Mine walks very funny, so it's fun to watch a toddler walk. They do still thrive on acknowledgement and achievements. They find a great security in that, and they enjoy planning and building. So activities that would programming ideas, I should say, for 5 to 7-year-olds are things that in which youth can take part in the active play. They learn how to apply very simple game rules. So you don't want something that's got a lot of rules. You want to give them freedom to kind of explore as they go along. Competition at this age is not recommended, but instead you want to encourage a sense of accomplishments, working together. You want to explore different worlds, so you'll see a lot of field trips to museums and such. And they still enjoy things like creating music and songs and puppet shows. The 8 and 9-year-olds, again, we still have very concrete thinking, and they must be able to see something, to feel it, to touch it. Like they need those senses to be able to understand. They do accept adults other than their parents as authorities. They're more interested in beginning than in finishing projects. You'll see a lot of that happening. And it can be somewhat disheartening to a youth worker if you create this program or activity and you've invested so much into it, and youth come in and they participate and they do great at the beginning, but they don't finish it. And you can sometimes feel, underwhelmed and unappreciated in that way. But you have to understand that's just where the children are at that level. So you have to understand the appropriateness of that activity again. They still prefer the segmented activities, boys versus girls. Um, they like being helpful. And they want to do real jobs. They're eager and easily motivated. And they still want to be in a group. They don't like playing alone. But I'll let you read through some of these on your own. So, when providing opportunities, here are things that you need to think of that we kind of go over. They are interested in being in small groups, short, explicit directions again, very concrete in their thinking, so they don't need a lot of abstractness within their directions. You do have the availability to give a wide variety of activities. They do enjoy those, um, especially creative activities, I should say. Um, Try to minimize failure. Again, this age group, 8 and 9 year olds, are still not be where we would recommend competition. Some people might disagree with that, but on a whole, you reach a larger audience being collaborative versus being competitive. So I would consider that when making your program or activities. And much like the younger age group, they still participate in dramatic play, and they still enjoy taking trips and celebrating special events. We get to our next age group, the 10 and 11-year-olds. Now we're starting to see that maturation process kick in, and puberty is beginning in some. Obviously, it might be delayed in others, but this is the age group that we start to kind of see that, in which they begin to develop a sense of their self. In this age group, very self conscious. They start disassociating from their parents. You will obviously see a very wide differences in physical attributes. As a former Park and Rec employee, I used to run youth athletics, and your 10 and 11-year-olds were widely varied in what was possible. And so you would see children who had matured early would be all stars and things at that age because they were just physically demanding in their size and presence, and younger, maybe not younger, but those who haven't matured as much had a very hard time um, competing against others who had matured more. Uh, at this age group, we start to really show the intense loyalty of peer groups. Um, they still somewhat prefer the same sex activities. They do like joining and organizing games themselves. Again, it's like the other younger age groups, they enjoy helping. So that's something you want to keep in mind. And the self concept is very fragile, as you may well remember during your time at this age group. Um, Things were very emotional, and you took things very personal, and so it was very fragile self concept. So when programming, here are some ideas. Look at activities that can discuss thoughts and feelings. Again, it can be a wide range of activities. You need to be able to recognize achievement and minimize failure. Here, it's all about the process, it's not the end result. Um, Use constant encouragement to motivate. Motivation towards task completion versus motivation for winning can be complicated. So think about being very complicit in encouraging your your participants, like through engagement or finishing the activity, something along those lines. You can start relating ideas to the past experiences. You can use phrases like, "Hey, remember when we did this last week? Remember we did this last summer? This is how we've done this previously." Any of those statements can start finding themselves within your programming and can become successful because the age group has had a somewhat of a physical maturation in their brain development in which they can understand this idea. Select projects again where he or she can be successful. Encourage group participation still. You can use older youth as role models if you need to. And again, about using the past as well, you can start using the past performances to the present performances, and you can show growth within an individual instead of competition between two people. You can show growth within, and that's what we would call a task involved environment. Which, side note, is my whole dissertation. So if you ever get really bored and you want to read about individual growth versus competition, you can read my dissertation one day. All right, 12 to 14-year-olds. This is a fun group, and I don't say that lightly. I really enjoy this age group. You start seeing rapid physical and emotional and social change. Definitely want to try new things. Love being part of a group. They exhibit wide range of physical characteristics as well. They can start really thinking abstractly. This is a fun time when going over concepts that are more detailed. They can start to become more successful and understand that. Can be moody. This is obvious. You have hormones that are raging at this point that can influence their mood. They start to question their values and beliefs and understanding, obviously becoming interested in the opposite sex. They still have quite a strong peer group loyalty. And while it's known for drama, I would like to add that this age group can be mature and sophisticated, while at the same time also being childish and petty, and that can change from one morning to one afternoon. So you never know what you're going to quite get when it comes to the mood and attitude of this age group, and that can be a challenge in and of itself. For activities, so start thinking about programs and activities that have social interaction in smaller groups. Things like service projects are a great idea. They can start being accountable for their decisions and they understand consequences related to those decisions more than younger groups would. You can use them as those experienced youth for younger groups as well. They can serve as role models. You need to choose tasks at which they can be successful. This is just an ongoing idea throughout your program. Any activity that promotes success is generally going to be thought of in higher regard in a youth development program, just because success is something that provides generally innate confidence within a person. So anytime a person can start stringing together successes, they feel more confident within themselves. So it's always a good reminder to try to promote activities that one can be successful. You will have activities that start interacting with members of the opposite sex, so you'll start bringing boys and girls together. Um, you can start new challenges, and you need to start recognizing them for the individuals that they are, as well as start recognizing some of the understanding that they do have limitations as well. All right, Module 4, Practicum. So what I want you to do is you're going to explore some of the activities that we've talked here today based on these age groups. I'm going to create a list, and these will be these topics that will be randomly assigned, and I will email the list out to the group so everybody can see what they're doing. And what I want you to do is create 5 or more activities that are related to this topic. And so give me what it is, how you would perform it, and such. All right, so here we are for EOM 4. So what I want you to do is start by looking at your day 2 schedule. So you already have your days broken down. So just take day number 2 and look at it. And so within day number 2, you have several activities that are program activities for your camp, right? So whether they be instruction or speakers or something like that. So we're talking the main substance of the day, not the breaks, not the lunches, not any of that, but the main programs that are going on in day 2. That's what I'm discussing. So what I want you to do is I want you to write out a lesson plan or an activity plan for each one of those activities. Now within the module, you'll see that there is a learning activity template provided, and I want you to follow that format. And activity number 1, fill out the learning activity template with the information that goes with the first activity of day number 2. And then scroll down and then do the same thing over and over and over in the same Word document for all the activities on day number 2. So each one of the plans must include ages and stages appropriate strategies. So you need to include the information that you just learned in this lesson and lecture. You must choose one of the educational design strategies that we went over in Module 3, as well as you also need to detail the learning outcomes of the activity. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. This can be kind of confusing when I'm trying to give you instructions over a voice lecture, so I'm here to help you as much as possible. Just give me a call. Thanks.